Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, we're diving into something that's not only super fun, but also incredibly rewarding. Growing your own oyster mushrooms at home. Yes, you heard that right. We're going to take it step by step, and by the end of this video, you'll be ready to start your own little mushroom farm right in your kitchen or backyard. So grab a notebook, settle in, and let's get started. First things first, let's talk about what oyster mushrooms are. These beauties are not just delicious, they're also packed with nutrients and have a lovely, delicate flavor that can elevate any dish. Plus, they're incredibly versatile. You can sauté them, toss them in a stir-fry, or even use them in soups. But enough about how tasty they are. Let's get into how to grow them. The very first step is to gather your materials. You're going to need some oyster mushroom spawn. This is basically the mushroom equivalent of seeds. You can find it online or at your local gardening store. Make sure to choose a reputable source so you know you're getting quality spawn. You'll also need a substrate, which is what the mushrooms will grow on. Common choices include straw, coffee grounds, or sawdust. Straw is a popular option because it's easy to work with and provides a great environment for the mushrooms to thrive. Now that you have your spawn and substrate, it's time to prep the substrate. If you're using straw, you'll need to chop it into small pieces, about 1 to 3 inches long. Once that's done, it's important to pasteurize the straw to kill off any unwanted bacteria or mold. You can do this by soaking the straw in hot water for about an hour. Just make sure the water is around 160 degrees Fahrenheit. After soaking, drain the straw and let it cool down a bit. We want it damp, not soaking wet. Once your substrate is ready, it's time to mix in the mushroom spawn. In a clean environment, this part is crucial to prevent contamination. Combine the straw and spawn in a large container or a clean bucket. You want to mix it well so that the spawn is evenly distributed throughout the substrate. Think of it like mixing cake batter. You want everything to be well integrated. Now, let's talk about where to grow your mushrooms. You can use plastic bags, containers, or even a small greenhouse if you have one. If you're using bags, fill them with the substrate mixture, making sure to pack it down lightly. Leave some space at the top, and then poke a few holes in the bag to allow for airflow. If you're using a container, just make sure it has good drainage. After you've set everything up, it's time for the waiting game. Place your bags or containers in a dark, warm place, ideally around 65 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. This is where the magic happens. Over the next couple of weeks, the mycelium, which is the root structure of the mushroom, will start to colonize the substrate. You might notice some white fuzz appearing. That's a good sign. It means your mycelium is doing its thing. Now, here's where it gets exciting. Once the substrate is fully colonized, it's time to initiate fruiting. This means we need to introduce some light and fresh air. Move your bags or containers to a location with indirect sunlight, like a kitchen counter or a bright room, and mist them with water a couple of times a day. This humidity is key. You can also create a mini greenhouse effect by covering them with a clear plastic bag, but make sure there's still airflow. Keep an eye on your mushrooms. They'll start to form little pins, which are baby mushrooms. This is such a thrilling moment. It's like watching your own little garden grow. As they develop, you'll see them swell and change shape. In about a week or two, they should be ready to harvest. The best time to pick them is when the caps are still slightly curled under. If you wait too long, they'll flatten out and start to release spores. When it's time to harvest, simply twist or cut the mushrooms off at the base. Be gentle. You don't want to damage the mycelium too much, as it can produce more flushes of mushrooms later on. After your first harvest, make sure to continue misting and caring for your substrate, and you might get a second or even third flush of mushrooms. It's like a never-ending supply of deliciousness. Now, I know some of you might be wondering about the challenges. Growing mushrooms isn't always a walk in the park. Sometimes, you might encounter issues like mold or pests. If you see any green or black mold, it's best to discard that batch and start fresh. And remember, cleanliness is key. Always wash your hands and tools before handling your mushrooms to minimize contamination. Before we wrap up, let's talk about the benefits of growing your own oyster mushrooms. Not only is it a fun and educational experience, but it's also a sustainable way to enjoy fresh produce right at home. You can reduce food waste by using coffee grounds or other leftover materials as substrate, and you'll save money in the long run. Plus, there's something incredibly satisfying about growing your own food. So, there you have it, a complete guide on how to grow oyster mushrooms at home. I hope you're feeling inspired to give it a try. If you have any questions or if you've tried growing mushrooms before, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear about your experiences. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more fun and informative content. Happy mushroom growing, everyone!